Welcome to the Calm Nights, Strong Days podcast. This is episode 66, where we are going to talk about how kids, they aren't bad by nature. And we are going to start redefining the expectations that we have on behavior, changing the way society has taught us to look at behaviors and switch that lens a little bit to help make parenting a little bit easier. Now, all of the examples that I'm going to be giving today may not exactly fit your scenario. If there's any that don't, and you want me to, maybe hopefully one of them will, but if any of them don't, just message me, email me. My email is in the show notes, or set up a call with me and we can talk through this so that I can help you have some more ideas that will work around your kid. All right, let's dive into today's episode. So I feel that it's quite fascinating, as I did just allude to, that we've been brought up to assume that when a child has done something that is quote unquote bad, that they meant to do it and that they have the skills to correct themselves. This has been something that's come up quite a bit lately. It's come up in my executive functioning course. It's come up in coaching calls with clients. And so it's one that I know definitely needs to be talked about. So what I want to cover today is the top 4 reasons that I see when I'm coaching my kids. And quite often there's a mix of these. It's not just one that I see in when coaching them, as well as in my own kids, where they may be exhibiting outbursts. They may have high anxiety. They may be frustrated a lot easier. There might be things that it's stopping them from actually doing things and shutting down, hitting other kids, yelling, screaming, some sort of behaviors that we deem bad. One example I'll be giving as well is like peeing on the floor when a child has already been potty trained for quite a while. So let's start diving into these reasons. The first one is one that I've always spoke about, is where their nervous system is taxed. They're trying their best. They're doing everything that they can. The thing is that, we know this as adults. So let's think about this as adults. When you're stressed, when you're at the height of your stress levels, where you can't be doing anything else, that you lose your cool a lot faster, right? You struggle to stay focused on what you need to do. You can't think as well. You're more irritated by things that are around you. This happens to us as an adult. So the same thing happens to a child. Now, I do know that I have spoke about this earlier in episodes, many episodes, where I talk about your nervous system. And the thing is that we are born with a certain amount of ability to handle stressors. It may be that I know for me, I was in burnout when I was pregnant with my child, with one of them. Well, both of them, my stress system was taxed, but really badly with my second. And his stress tolerance is a lot shorter than his brother's. The ability of what he can even handle in a day. Now, we have worked on that, and he has a much larger capability now. But until you work on these things with a child, until the child is willing and able as well to work on things in order to strengthen the amount of stress that they can handle in a day, they have only a certain capacity. And once they've hit that capacity, boom, it's off. The thing is when your nervous system is already very, very reactive, you as well, smaller things react more. So going back to my earlier example with adults, where we are shorter when we can't handle as big of stressors. When we are stressed, we can't big picture think. Our gut becomes a mess. We may have anxiety. We may get angry. We may shut down. It depends on the individual, but we're less engaged in a positive way. So, and every single stress hits you harder and harder, the smaller and smaller stressors. So when you don't have a stress system, or you have a stress system that is being taxed constantly, then it is really, really hard to keep your cool. As adults, I mean, so many parents too, when we're just being parents, quite often before parents, we were already struggling with energies and stress levels and that. And then once kids come into play, especially when we have a child with big emotions, a child that has more struggles than other kids, it puts a lot of pressure on your marriage, on you individually as a parent. And it is hard. So it starts pushing you too. So the odds are both of you are a little more taxed than you have to be. And that is one thing that we can definitely be diving into. When we know ourselves, when we are pushed and we snap, that we're not meaning to be bad. We're not meaning to yell. We're not meaning to be mean to somebody. Does that negate how the other person felt and that it was wrong? No, it doesn't. But it also doesn't mean that you are a bad person because you were doing it. As with a child, it doesn't mean that this child is bad because they're exhibiting behaviors that we feel are bad when their nervous system is completely taxed. So that's the first reason that I do see why outbursts happen in kids, anxiety, stopping them from shutting down. Now, another one is high sensitivity. And this is one that I find so hard for people to understand unless you're actually experiencing it. And it's where sense, smells, visual, touch, feeling other people's emotions, you may be higher susceptible to them. Susceptible, I don't know if that's a word. Higher sensitive to them. So you may hear more than most people hear. So a lot of sounds start becoming overwhelming. You may smell more than people smell. So smells might start getting really overstimulating. You may not like the touch of how things are on your body with tags or seams or the material. And all of those things are stressing you out. You may just feel other people's emotions. And all of these things can cause what we quote unquote bad behaviors. And because we're actually trying to fight or flight or shut down around them. So we may not engage with people. We may start doing things that people think are like really bad, but we are literally trying to just keep it together. All of those stressors just are pushing us over that edge. And the other one, the next one, the third, is where they haven't learned the skills yet. And this one I find fascinating. So when a child is born, I remember speaking with I believe it was my sister-in-law, when she was about to have a baby. And she said that something I had said to her, like, really made a lot of sense. And it was that when a child is born, they don't know anything. They're a clean slate. We expect that they should know day from night, but they don't know day from night. It's our job as parents to start teaching them that you're awake in the day and you're asleep at night. As you know, they start napping in the day, but longer at night. It's our job to teach them these things. It's our job to teach them right from wrong. Now, as we know, as kids get older, when they, their system is taxed and different things, there may be behaviors that we're seeing that are bad, that are because of the other reasons that I've been saying. But we expect that, like, there's a saying out there, I'm not at all going to say this right, but it is about common sense, how common sense isn't so common. And if we start diving into that and looking at executive functioning, so executive functioning is behaviors that affect our thoughts, our planning, and our emotions. And we expect that these should just be, that they should just learn them over time because they're in our society. Kind of like if you grow up speaking English, you just assume that everybody is going to be able to grow up and speak English, right? And there's some that still struggle with language patterns based on other ways that, there's might be certain processes in their brain that haven't fired or wired in the way that need to fire or wire in order to be able to grasp that at that moment. So when we look back at the executive functioning piece, we expect that like common sense should just innately be there. And in some people, they do catch on really quickly to it, but others, it's a certain wiring of their brain. And this happens a lot in gifted kids where they are so smart in so many different things. And then we realize that they struggle to pack a bag to get out. They struggle to, get their clothes on, get their teeth brushed, like it just their morning routine, just to get ready and get themselves out the door for school, even though they've done it every single day for years and years and years on end. Like, how can they not get this? And they're such a smart kid, right? And the thing too, like redirecting your thoughts. So fascinating in this course that I'm taking, we did this exercise where we had to just for 1 minute, she's like, just focus on your breathing, focus on the inhale, focus on the exhale for 1 minute. And at the end, she's like, how many of you, your thoughts went elsewhere? And everybody's did, right? You cannot solely sit there and think breath in, breath out. There's little thoughts that are going to go in. The thing is you redirect yourself and you bring yourself, oh, I'm not on my breath. I need to redirect myself back to my breath. And a lot of kids struggle with this. Not a lot. I don't actually know numbers, so that's just an incorrect statement. I'm assuming quite a few kids struggle with this. There's many kids that my kids hang out with that do, and one of my kids does, where they do struggle with that focus of the redirecting of those thoughts. And so that alone takes a lot of energy, but it's also a skill that they have to learn. So they may not be focused enough to get everything that they need to pack in a bag. They may also not have the executive functioning skill to put a plan together and be able to execute the plan, know how to even do that. They may always have been following a plan that their parents made or their teachers made, but they haven't been able to follow a plan on their own. So then they're doing things like, why I've told you 5 times already to pack your bag, or I've told you to put your shoes on 5 times now, and you still haven't done it. And that's the thing, this child is not trying to be bad. It's an executive functioning struggle that they haven't been taught. And that's where I'm learning right now how to be teaching these, how to teach those patterns and neural pathways and things in a child so that they could do these things. And it's so fascinating that so many of these behaviors we assume are behaviors they should just learn because they were born, when in fact they have to be taught. Quite a few of them, even kids that are crazy smart. Another one as well, along with this executive functioning, is a client who has an autistic child, and they were peeing on the floor recently. And the thing is that they're potty trained. And he goes up and he speaks in words. He says, bad, wet floor. So he knows that what happened was bad. He's not trying to be bad. So we worked on the executive functioning pattern. We worked on being able to help, because they knew to go to the bathroom, but it is very possible have been in school. And in school, it's possible that they have bathroom breaks frequently, so that, they are going to the bathroom, but somebody else is directing that. It's not them self-directing it. So what this parent has been working on is self-directing the child and going in and every so often just going, I wonder if you have to go to the bathroom, instead of saying, go to the bathroom. I wonder if you have to go to the bathroom. And if they're in the middle of doing something, you pull them away from it. They're like, let's just, what do you think? Do you think that we should go to the bathroom and try and come back and play with this in a bit? And so they're thinking, should I stop doing this? And should I go to the bathroom and come back to this? So they're starting to get this pattern in their brain, and then they're going, and then they come back. And after they come back, you're reinforcing it by saying, amazing, how did you just do that? And you're saying, you stopped doing what you were doing to go to the bathroom, and then you came back to play with it again. And the mom emailed me in a week and said it's already making a difference. Like the accidents are less and less frequent, like noticeably, like huge. And that's the thing. It's not always they're not doing this to be bad. Quite often, once we start diving into this, okay, is it the nervous system firing? Is it being highly sensitive, which is taxing their nervous system? Is it an executive functioning? Have they not yet, you know, has that brain not made that wiring connection where they can do this on their own without the help and guidance? So an example as well is in a sense of where a parent is guiding too much. Not, sorry, I'm not going to say guiding too much, because what the parent is doing is necessary and it was working. It's just the first step. The parent is actually missing the next steps. So if you're using pictures, if a child is visual and you're using the pictures of, like, you know, the clothes and the toothbrush and then the breakfast bowl, so that the child knows these are the steps I do in the morning, it's going through that and then then you cover up the first picture once they have all three. And so that they know that there are still 3 steps, they have to now remember what that first step was. And once they get the first step without an image, then you cover up the first and second step. And then once they have the first and second without the image, you cover up the third. And then you take 3, like just 3 empty boxes, so they know that there's 3 things to do. And then you can do just 1, 2, 3. And then you can take out the 1 and they know there's 2, 3. So they know there must be a 1 there, a first step. Then you take away 2, 3, or sorry, you take away the second. So they know, and you just have a 3 on it with empty spaces where the 1 and 2 should be. So they know, oh, there was a first step and a second step. And then I know I have this third step. And it takes a while because you're programming a brain, a neural pathway. And it takes a while, and it may take, you know, some cueing and stuff. And after they do it every single day, it's like, great, how did you do that? Tell me how you did that today. And they'll tell you, I followed this, and then I did this, and then I did this. So they're creating the neural pathway in their brain so they can eventually do it. And that's the thing. We just really, really expect that these kids, especially the smart ones, I think with the smart ones is where we have the struggle, or with a child that has already learned a skill. So I'll use potty training. They've used the skill, they've had that skill, that we're like, why are they peeing on the floor again? But we have to sometimes stop and think back, oh, where was the programming? You know, has it been a while since they did it? Has the situation or the environment changed? Has one of the steps changed? And for this individual, the step that changed was that somebody has probably been guiding them during the school days of when to go to the bathroom, that they weren't thinking of that step themselves anymore. So it really is breaking that down. Now, the next one, the last one that I do have, is traumas. And traumas can be, as I've dove deep, I think in the 40s of this episode, there's a whole section on IFS and traumas, and with perfectionism and competitiveness and not wanting to be coached and all kinds of different traumas that can happen that we don't think are traumas. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Even when this is a very highly gifted child, they may feel they're not smart enough because their brain thinks different in how they learn something. Or they may know math at a ridiculous level, but they can't write out the answers. And these can start putting these little traumas in to their brains when they get things so easily, and all of a sudden they can't do something, or they're so good and they're always winning at everything, and all of a sudden they're not scoring goals all the time, or they're not winning in everything. It can be a struggle, and those can get into traumas. When there's somebody that doesn't want to be coached or taught, that's defiant, that, you know, doesn't, what is it? People with authority, where somebody needs to earn their respect before they respect them, regardless of who they are. If they're, you know, an adult, a teacher, a police officer, a coach, any of these things, they may not respect them until respect is earned. I'm saying that like in quotes by that child. And they really struggle with any direction at all. If you're telling them to do something, they may have huge outbursts. That's possibly could be pathological demand avoidance, PDA. And that is a really tough one, as a parent, speaking from experience, where anything that you tell a child to do can end up in huge meltdowns. It can end up in violence with some kids. And what I have been learning through all of the other channels I'm going through, I do know that IFS therapists, internal family system therapists who have worked on certain with PDA kids, who have worked on the perfectionism and some of the other traumas with them, that their PDA symptoms really, really decreased, or went away. So definitely case by case, not for everyone. There's different extremes, there's different types. Maybe that those kids too were even misdiagnosed with PDA when it was something else, which happens all the time. That I do struggle with so many labels on things. The labels are great because they get you accommodations, they get you the help and the support from school systems, from the medical system, all of that. But at the same time, they also put somebody in a box. And sometimes then we don't think out of the box in order to be able to helping that child as well. So that's where I have never gotten an official diagnosis of PDA for my child. We homeschool as well, so we don't need the accommodations. And that he would definitely need if he had a PDA diagnosis. But at the same time, a lot of the skills of the executive functioning stuff I've been working, the trauma work he's been doing, the nervous system regulation stuff he's been doing, I've seen such a huge change in him. So we have ways to go. So that's where I'm like, I don't want to put him in a box. If I get really, really stuck on all of these tools and everything I'm going, then maybe I would go there if I needed some more supports. But I don't want just the supports and tools that are in that box and that label of PDA. So that's where, even if you have a label, a diagnosis, I believe it's very important as parents to really start looking out of that box of tools that you're given as well. Those tools may be life-saving and they may be absolutely amazing and important and huge viable tools for you that you are being given. And then adding tools that are outside of the box as well may be huge in adding to the value and the and helping your child. So traumas. Oh, there's another one as well that of working with a client recently, is that there was with a trauma. So I was working with a client who all related to their mom, that their mom always had a measuring stick in a sense. So what they measured their worth, their value, their abilities. So whether they got A pluses on things, whether how fast did they learn to ride a bike, how quick did they do this. So it always seemed like their parent had a measuring stick. And they worked through that and they got rid of the kind of, what's the word for that? Of the measuring stick that their mother had on them. But when we worked together, we realized that they had actually created their own measuring stick. So they were really pushing themselves in their businesses, in their work, which they love to do and it drives them. But in certain things, it was pushing them so much that it was getting them into burnout. And some of the expectations weren't expectations they would have for anyone else, for anybody on their team that worked for them, for anybody of their colleagues or friends. Their expectations were higher because they were comparing themselves to the measuring stick. So we were able to get rid of that measuring stick. So it wasn't their mom's measuring stick. It was the measuring stick they had for themselves, which was created because of a trauma because of their mom's measuring stick. So it's very fascinating when you start, there's so many pieces to this. There's so many layers and pieces to be adding together to be able to helping and seeing where these behaviors are really, really coming from. The basics, though, if we really take this 30,000 foot view, if we're looking at from far ahead, if we think if there's nervous system, there's always going to be a nervous system dysregulation in these kids, which means they're in fight or flight, where they're, quick outbursts, frustration, anger, or they shut down. Oh, and anxiety can be in that heightened state too. It can be anxiety, worrying, angry, or they shut down. So those are the two. Um, with that nervous system, if you're seeing a lot of those, then quite often, like, their nervous system is taxed, and it's like, let's find out why. So we have this nervous system, and then you have the executive functioning piece. Executive functioning skills. So being able to pack their bag, being able to, um, oh goodness, like regulate their emotions, being able to, plan and organize things. And I'm not saying in an Uber way, right? Like, uh, it doesn't have to be like to the extra, like I'm a little OCD as far as organization and where things go and all of that. That doesn't have to be with a child. But if their organization is in such a way that it's actually interfering with their life of being able to, hand in their homework or follow the steps in something, those are executive functioning things that we can definitely be working on. When your nervous system is taxed, the executive functioning skills decrease. So their ability to, work through steps, to hand in their homework, to pack that bag, to get themselves ready to go places, to do those executive functioning skills, emotional regulation, then those become harder when that nervous system is taxed. So think of these as circles. We have a circle with the nervous system, and then butting up into, like, right into that circle is the nervous system. And then we have a third one. So think these three circles are all intertwined with each other. And the third one is the traumas. So quite often too, when you have executive functioning skills, when you can't do certain things, then it does create little traumas in yourself. And it exacerbates your nervous system as well when you have these traumas. And then if there's bigger traumas, parents are divorced, you are adopted, living in foster systems, we have, separation, divorce, we have mental health struggles, we have parents with struggles. There's so many different things that can really cause a lot of traumas in kids as well. So having those three together, executive functioning, nervous system, and traumas, they're all linked. Think of them as three circles all linked together. And all of those can create what are called these bad behaviors by kids, and can also create unrealistic expectations in a child until they have learned things, until their nervous system is more regulated, until they've learned the executive functioning skills that they're struggling, and they can be learned. Up until mid 20s, our brain has that elasticity, that neuroplasticity in order to be able to learn all of those functions. Adults can too. Adults have to do it on a much more frequent, they have to do the homework on a much more frequent rate in order for the new trait, the new, what's it called? The new habit, the new executive functioning skill, the new skill to become a part of your brain where your brain can function and do it. So these all can be helped with kids, definitely. And I think that I strongly feel that when a child has quote unquote bad behavior, that we should be stepping out of the box and kind of looking at really what's going on here. Instead of punishing the child, we start looking at it in a very different lens and we start helping the child. All right. Thank you so much for listening. If any of this resonated with you, definitely let me know. I'm speaking into a screen here. It can get a little lonely, and I also don't know what's resonating with you, what isn't, what's helping, what isn't. I have a Facebook group that you are more than welcome to join that is Kids with Big Emotions. The link is in the show notes. I also have in the show notes a call. It's a 30-minute call that you can book with me. So if there's questions you have for me, things you want to talk about, if you just want to connect with me, book a call. I am really wanting to learn about who's listening to this. I want to learn more about your kids so that I know how to best be speaking to you, giving you what you want and you need. I know what's happening in my life. I know what's happening in my current client's life, but I would love to know what's happening in your life as well, so that I can really make sure that this podcast is speaking to you, because that's who it's for, is for you. So let me know, book a call. My link is in the show notes below. Don't forget to join that Facebook group, and I will see you in the next episode.